Hello all, and welcome to the channel. I'm Six Path Weeb, and you're now tuned into a place where anime meets imagination. Today, we dive into our latest fanfic journey, the rebirth of Naruko Yamanaka. Get ready for a unique twist on the Naruto universe, where familiar faces return with brand new stories, emotions, and power. Disclaimer: the content on this channel is for entertainment and discussion purposes only. I do not own any of the anime footage used in my videos. All rights and credits belong to their respective creators and copyright holders. Alright everyone, let's get started. Konohagakure no Sato, one of the 5 great ninja villages, is known far and wide for its strength, unity, and rich legacy. Often called the Great Tree, it stands tall through the ages, weathering storms yet always rooted deeply in its ideals. This village has played a role in every major conflict in the shinobi world and emerged resilient each time. Legends were born here, heroes of remarkable courage and spirit. Their legacy is carved in stone above the village, watching over the people they once protected. Though years pass, the memory of their strength continues to inspire all who call Konoha home. However, even the most beautiful gardens can face trouble. Just as weeds may sprout among flourishing plants, challenges and mistakes can arise, testing the unity of the community. In the Hidden Leaf Village, any signs of disloyalty are addressed with wisdom and care, ensuring peace continues to blossom. After the Third Great Shinobi War, Konoha experienced a rare season of peace. The village flourished, its people growing stronger together. But then came an event that would shake the entire village. 7 years ago, Konoha faced a crisis, not from a rival village, but from a powerful force of nature. The Kyubi no Kitsune, a giant fox spirit, appeared suddenly and overwhelmed the village. The sky darkened, and chaos erupted as buildings trembled and people ran for safety. Yet in the face of such turmoil, brave shinobi stood their ground. That night, a hero rose. The 4th Hokage, Minato Namikaze, used all her strength to protect the village. With extraordinary resolve, she was able to seal the fox's energy into a newborn girl, ensuring the safety of Konoha. Though the event left behind sorrow, it also reminded the people of their strength and determination. Now, 7 years later, the village continues to heal. Each year on the 10th of October, Konoha holds a celebration to honor the courage of those who stood strong and the new hope that was born that day. Lanterns light the streets, music fills the air, and the leaves dance gently in the breeze, just as they did on that unforgettable night. Heim, where are you? A concerned voice called through the busy festival crowd. Inoiki Yamanaka, head of the Yamanaka clan, wove his way between festival goers. His long blonde ponytail swayed behind him, and his eyes scanned the area with growing urgency. Dressed in his Jonin uniform and signature red cloak, he looked every bit the experienced shinobi, but right now, he was just a worried parent searching for his daughter. He had brought Ino to the festival for a night of fun and celebration, but in a moment of distraction, she had slipped away into the crowd. She had insisted she could handle herself. After all, she was growing up, but that didn't stop her father from worrying. If anything happens to her. He muttered to himself, unable to finish the thought. As he rounded a corner into a quiet alleyway, a strange stillness hung in the air. His instincts, honed through years of training, alerted him that something was wrong. The air was heavy, and tiny shards of glass crunched beneath his feet. He stepped cautiously, eyes darting from shadows to broken windows, trying to understand what had happened. Then, a faint smell reached him. It was metallic, and it filled him with unease. As he followed the scent, he came upon a small figure lying still on the ground. Blonde hair spread around the child's face, and her clothes were torn. Inoiki's heart raced. Was this Ino? But as he moved closer, he saw the hair color was slightly different. He gently turned the child over and gasped softly. The young girl had faint whisker-like marks on her cheeks, marks he recognized. It's the Jinchuriki, he whispered. She was unconscious but breathing faintly. Without hesitation, Inoiki lifted the girl into his arms. Her clothes were scorched, and she had several injuries, suggesting she'd been caught in a serious situation. There was no time to investigate further. Channeling chakra into his legs, Inoiki leapt up the wall and took to the rooftops, racing toward the hospital. Who could do such a thing to a child? He wondered, shaken by the thought. No shinobi should ever lose sight of their duty to protect. As he moved swiftly through the village, one thought stayed with him: no matter what challenges arise, compassion must always guide the path of a true shinobi. Almost there, Naruko, said Inoiki softly, though he knew she was too weak to respond. The blonde shinobi moved swiftly through the village, her steps fueled by urgency. She had to get Naruko to the hospital as quickly as possible. She couldn't believe how things had come to this. Jinchuriki or not, she's just a young girl. And she's never done anything to harm anyone. Inoiki had heard rumors before, stories about people treating Naruko unkindly, but she hadn't believed it could be this serious. Only now, as she carried the unconscious child, did the weight of that truth sink in. You never asked for this, Naruko. You were given this role without a choice, she said quietly, glancing down with a heavy heart. Why did Minato choose you, child? Anyone 15 or older on the night of October 10th knew the truth. The Kyuubi had been sealed within Naruko. That information had been made public by the third Hokage shortly after the attack ended. The Hokage had hoped the villagers would honor the fourth's wishes, to treat Naruko as a hero. But the third had underestimated something crucial about human nature. Ignorance often overpowers understanding. Rather than gratitude, many responded with fear and resentment. The pain of the Kyuubi's attack still lingered, and instead of healing, that pain was misdirected toward a child who had no say in what had happened. The third Hokage had tried to correct this by passing a law that forbade anyone from speaking about Naruko's condition to the younger generation. But by then, the damage had already begun to spread. Though we, the clan leaders, tried to treat her fairly, the children of civilians, learning by example, began to isolate her too. And in the end, she was left all alone. I should have encouraged Ino to be her friend. As the hospital came into view, Inoiki's gaze briefly drifted to the faces on the Hokage monument. Her eyes paused at the one belonging to Minato Namikaze. Wait a second, Inoiki stopped suddenly, staring down at Naruko's face in disbelief. This doesn't make sense. Minato wouldn't have left just any child with this responsibility. Not without thought. Not without care. And especially not someone with no one by her side. She remembered, Kushina had been expecting a child. Kushina and Minato had always been close, united not just by duty, but by heart. Her eyes widened as realization struck, her breath catching from the weight of understanding. Minato didn't only protect the village. Now she understood. Naruko wasn't just carrying the legacy of a Jinchuriki. She was carrying the legacy of the fourth Hokage. Minato gave everything. He gave what mattered most to him. Namikaze Naruko, Inoiki whispered, gently adjusting the girl in her arms. And with that, she continued on toward the hospital, determined that this time, things would be different. Sarutobi Hiruzen, dressed in his traditional Hokage robes and hat, stood silently in front of his window, gazing out over the Hidden Leaf village. A soft breeze touched his weathered face, and the sound of distant music mixed with the cheerful laughter of children playing below offered him a moment of peace. But that calm was short-lived. Moments earlier, he had received troubling news about a child he cared for deeply, someone who had come to mean as much to him as family. About half an hour ago, Naruko Uzumaki had been rushed to Konoha's General Hospital by an urgent and protective Inoiki Yamanaka. She had been found hurt and exhausted, and Inoiki had demanded that she receive immediate care, clearly worried and not willing to take no for an answer. Hiruzen sighed quietly. This was not the first time something like this had happened. Many times, some of the villagers would show unfairness toward the girl. Naruko, being quick on her feet and clever, would often avoid these situations. And when she couldn't, the Anbu would usually arrive just in time to help. But today had been more difficult. The village was crowded for the festival, making it harder for the Anbu to monitor every area. When help finally reached her, it had already been a challenging situation. Another sigh escaped the Hokage as he pinched the bridge of his nose. He wished he could protect Naruko at all times, but as the leader of the village, there were limits to how much he could be everywhere at once. He had tried many times to explain Naruko's importance to the villagers, but fear and misunderstanding had already taken root, largely influenced by the persuasive words of Danzo Shimura. Danzo, Hiruzen murmured, disapprovingly. Though he believed Danzo acted for what he considered the good of the village, Hiruzen couldn't agree with his harsh methods. 7 years earlier, just after the Great Sealing event, Danzo had proposed taking charge of Naruko's training. He insisted she could be shaped into a great protector for the village. But Hiruzen had refused. He knew Danzo's approach was far too strict, often treating young shinobi more like tools than people. He could never allow that to happen to Naruko. Danzo hadn't taken the refusal kindly. Being well connected within the village council and influential among the civilians, it hadn't been difficult for Danzo to sway opinions and encourage others to distance themselves from Naruko. Hiruzen understood that Danzo hoped to make him regret his decision, but he never would. Giving in would mean allowing Naruko to lose her freedom and joy. Hiruzen turned his gaze to the sky, admiring the full moon shining through a blanket of stars. I'm sorry, Minato, he thought silently. I'm doing all I can to protect her, but... Thump. 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 His thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. Enter, Hiruzen said without turning around. The door opened, then closed again, and a presence entered the room. Good evening, Hokage-sama, came the polite greeting. Hiruzen recognized the voice immediately. He had expected this visit, expected a conversation, especially after what had happened earlier. Turning slowly, the Hokage gave a respectful nod. Good evening, Inoiki. What brings you here at this hour? He knew the answer, of course. He had stayed in his office, anticipating this very meeting. Hokage-sama, may we speak for a while? Inoiki asked respectfully. Hiruzen nodded again and gestured for him to sit. The two sat across from one another, a heavy silence settling between them, the desk bathed in moonlight. After a pause, Inoiki cleared his throat and began. As I'm sure you already know, I took Naruko to the hospital earlier today. I had heard whispers of things before, but I never imagined someone would be so unkind to a 7-year-old child. How could this happen in our village? Hiruzen calmly prepared his pipe, lighting it and taking a single thoughtful puff. The smoke drifted softly away before he responded. First, let me thank you for helping Naruko. You'll be compensated with a B-rank mission payment for your efforts. With respect, Hokage-sama, Inoiki replied firmly, if you truly want to thank me, I'd rather have answers than payment. Taking a calm breath from her pipe, the elderly Hokage exhaled slowly. Very well, Inoiki-san. I will allow you to ask 4 questions. I'll answer as best I can. She raised her eyes to meet his. As for your first question, yes, this situation has happened before. Normally, Naruko would be clever enough to avoid them, but during the annual Yondaime's festival, certain people always manage to corner her and harass her. Why is this behavior allowed to go without consequence, Hokage-sama? Inoiki asked firmly, rising to his feet and placing his hands on the table. I do not allow it to go unpunished, Inoiki. The Hokage replied, matching his tone and also standing. I see to it that anyone who violates the law is dealt with properly. The blonde shinobi flinched slightly, surprised to hear the Hokage raise her voice, but her resolve remained strong. That's not true, and we both know it. I work in Konoha's intelligence division. I've seen these same individuals brought in, and yet they walk out 10 minutes later without so much as a warning, Inoiki said, visibly upset. The Hokage fell silent and slowly returned to her seat. Realizing how strongly he'd reacted, Inoiki immediately bowed deeply. Hokage-sama, I apologize. I don't know what came over me. What am I doing? Did I really raise my voice at the Hokage? What if I'm disciplined for this? To his surprise, the Hokage chuckled softly. Don't worry, Inoiki. Your concern shows how deeply you care about this matter. Then her expression turned serious. I will personally look into this, though I already have a strong suspicion about who's behind it. Who is it, Sandaime-sama? Inoiki asked cautiously. The Hokage took another draw from her pipe, letting the smoke curl gently in the air before exhaling. After a few moments of silence, she finally spoke. Danzo Shimura, she said, her tone heavy. Seeing the confusion on Inoiki's face, she continued, for years, Danzo has quietly opposed me, waiting for an opportunity to take control of the village. 7 years ago, he saw one, in the form of young Naruko Uzumaki. He urged me to turn her over to him, insisting she be trained as a tool of the village. Of course, I refused and ordered him to disband his private organization, Root. She sighed. Unfortunately, Danzo did not heed that order. Though we've never found direct proof, I believe Root still operates in the shadows. He likely sees Naruko as a means to an end, hoping the village's mistreatment of her will eventually drive her into his arms, so to speak. Inoiki frowned. If Root still exists, then there's a chance some of its members have found their way into the intelligence division. Exactly, the Hokage agreed. Now, you have one question left. Please, ask it. Inoiki didn't hesitate. Is Naruko the daughter of Kushina Uzumaki and Minato Namikaze? The Hokage's eyes widened. She looked down, her hat casting a shadow over her face. She said nothing. Inoiki studied her carefully. The silence was all the confirmation he needed. So. It's true. But why doesn't Naruko know? The Hokage didn't respond. Inoiki, that was your 4th question. The Jonin looked ready to protest, but then paused. The moonlight caught something on the old woman's face, tears, glistening as they rolled gently down her cheeks. I'm an old woman, Inoiki, she said quietly. I've seen more than most ever should. I've witnessed hardship, sacrifice, and sorrow beyond words. And yet, the one thing that truly weighs on my heart is that bright smile Naruko wears. I admire her so much. Despite everything, she still smiles. Every single day. She placed a hand over her eyes, her voice cracking. But I worry. I worry that each day it's harder for her to keep that smile. I can see how much effort it takes her now. And I hate that I can't do more to help her. The legendary Hokage, known as the god of shinobi, had finally faced defeat in a war that had cost much. The emotions he had bottled up for years overwhelmed him, and for the first time in a long while, tears flowed freely. What's the point of being called powerful, if I can't even protect a child? The old Hokage whispered through his sobs. Inoiki, understanding the weight of the words, silently reflected. When I mistakenly believed that Naruto had been lost, I felt helpless, powerless. This shows that even the strongest have their vulnerable moments. Sarutobi composed himself with a deep breath, wiping away his tears. I want to protect Naruko, that's why I've kept her heritage a secret. If Iwagakure finds out that she is the child of the man they despise, they won't hesitate to send threats her way. Inoiki spoke gently, but Hokage-sama, she deserves to know about her parents. When the time comes, I'll tell her. But for now, I want to keep her safe. Safe, yes, but she has suffered so much already. If people knew she was the daughter of the Yondaime, perhaps they'd treat her with more kindness. Sarutobi shook his head with a heavy heart. I can't risk her safety by revealing too much. She's not ready. If a shinobi attacked her, she wouldn't stand a chance. She's already being attacked in her own village, Inoiki replied quietly. What? Is that true? Sarutobi asked, startled. Inoiki nodded. When I found her, her legs were badly burnt, likely from a fire jutsu. The Hokage clenched his fists in frustration. How could anyone sink so low? I asked myself that too, Hokage-sama. But I won't press on about revealing her parentage anymore. I understand you want to protect Naruko, and the village as well. Hiruzen nodded, a quiet sadness in his eyes. Inoiki was right. He wanted to protect her, but as Hokage, he had to consider the village's needs too. Let me train Naruko, Lord Hokage. Inoiki's request echoed in the room. It wasn't the first time someone had asked to train her. 7 years ago, he had turned down a similar request from Danzo, but this time felt different. Inoiki didn't see Naruko as a tool for power, he saw her as someone to guide and nurture, just like he had once been. The Hokage paused, deep in thought. I promise you, if she becomes my disciple, she will have food, a home, and most importantly, the chance to grow into a great person, just like her father. One day, you'll be able to tell her about her heritage without fear. Sarutobi narrowed his eyes, trying to discern the true intention behind Inoiki's words. So this is about her father. I started helping her before I knew about her parentage, Hokage-sama. Inoiki replied, hurt by the implication. I don't want to see what happened today happen again. If you truly care for her, let me train her. The Hokage scrutinized Inoiki for a moment longer but could detect no dishonesty in his words. He finally nodded. All right, Inoiki. You can train her, but only if she agrees to it. Tomorrow, we'll go to the hospital and ask her. Does that sound acceptable? Yes, Hokage-sama, Inoiki replied. Then you are dismissed. Inoiki stood, bowed respectfully, and turned to leave. But just before he opened the door, the Hokage spoke again. Inoiki, I am confident that Naruko will agree to your offer. As a grandfather, I ask you, please, take good care of her. The Yamanaka smiled warmly. I promise, Sarutobi-sama, I will take care of her. With that, he exited, leaving the Hokage alone with his thoughts. The night had fallen, and the streets that had once been filled with festival-goers were now eerily quiet, save for one lone figure. Inoiki Yamanaka was finally heading home after a long, hectic day. He smiled to himself, thinking of his family and how tomorrow might bring a new chapter for Naruko. As he approached his home, he couldn't shake a sudden uneasy feeling, as if something unexpected was about to happen. Shrugging it off, he continued on his way. Home at last, he called as he entered, hoping to be greeted by his wife. His wife, Mayu, appeared from one of the doors, dressed in a simple white robe over her nightgown. Her platinum blonde hair was neatly tied up, and she greeted him with a smile. Welcome home, dear. How was your day? Oh, Mayu, you won't believe the day I had, Inoiki replied, pulling her into a gentle embrace and kissing her forehead. You poor thing, she teased. By the way, Do you know where Ino is? She came home earlier, looking upset. Inoiki froze, realizing what had happened. Of course you wouldn't know. Imagine my surprise when our daughter walked through the door alone, crying, after navigating the crowds outside. Mayu's smile faded, and she moved closer to Inoiki, her expression now serious. Wait, Mayu, I can explain, Inoiki stammered, cornering himself as he tried to avoid his wife's fury. There's nothing to explain. You were probably out drinking with Shikaku or Choza again, weren't you? Mayu replied, crossing her arms in frustration. Trying to defend himself, the Jonin said, No, I wasn't. I saved a life. I'm a hero. Mayu simply chuckled. Silly husband, always caught up in your beer-induced fantasies. With a sly grin, she revealed her weapon of choice, the legendary husband beater, the frying pan. Inoiki's face drained of color as he saw his fate sealed, and he quickly bolted for the front door. But it was too late, the sound of metal striking flesh echoed throughout the house. It was a sound anyone who had heard it before would instantly recognize, a husband being disciplined for his foolishness. Dash. In a large stone hall, a bandaged elderly man sat at a desk, quietly reading some documents. His shaggy black hair framed his face, with a cross-shaped scar clearly visible on his cheek. Speak, the bandaged man commanded, though there was no one in front of him. At that moment, a masked figure garbed in black appeared, kneeling respectfully before the old man. Danzo-sama, I have information you should hear. Someone has shown interest in training Naruko Uzumaki. Danzo frowned, signaling for the man to continue with a small hand gesture. The person is the Yamanaka clan head, Inoiki Yamanaka. It appears the Hokage has granted him permission to teach the girl. What should we do about this, sir? The man known as Danzo rested his elbows on the table, his fingers interlaced in front of his face as he pondered the situation. We cannot allow Yamanaka to take Naruko away from us. She is integral to my plans if I am to succeed. Tomorrow, we will meet with Yamanaka and convince him to withdraw his request to teach her, by any means necessary. With that, the clock struck midnight, marking the end of October 10th, and the beginning of a day that would shape the future of a young child. I dislike hospitals, thought Naruko Uzumaki as she stared at the white ceiling of her room. Not long ago, the young girl had been sleeping peacefully, intending to rest for as long as possible. But the sun had other plans. Through the curtains, sunlight poured in, hitting her face and gently stirring her from her slumber. She tried to stay asleep, burying herself under the sheets, but her efforts were futile, she was back in her lonely reality. Sitting up, Naruko scanned the sterile white room, her gaze landing on a vase with a few flowers atop the nightstand. A question bubbled up in her mind. Had Gigi been here? She sighed and threw the sheets off, revealing her body wrapped in bandages and hospital robes. I was too slow. They really did a number on me this time, Naruko thought, running her fingers gently over the bandages, stopping when she reached her legs. A chill ran down her spine as memories from the day before resurfaced. I shouldn't have gone to Ichiraku. I knew what yesterday was. I should have stayed in my apartment like Gigi said, but that stupid tummy monster wanted to eat. Pulling her legs close to her chest, Naruko wrapped her arms around them. The intense heat from the flames still seemed to burn her legs, even though she knew they had already healed. She could only watch as the three men kicked, stomped, and attacked her, her screams unheard over the noise of the festival. Her voice had eventually grown hoarse, and just as her spirit seemed to fade, unconsciousness swept over her like a blanket of mercy. Now, here she was in Konoha's hospital, nearly every inch of her body wrapped in gauze. Determined, Naruko began to peel away the gauze around her legs. She remembered the searing pain and how she had wished for them to become ashes, hoping the fire would stop. To her surprise, the pain had lessened, and the wounds on her legs had mostly healed. Naruko was a fast healer, which was something she took pride in. It was the one thing about herself she could always count on, even when the world seemed cold and indifferent. It wasn't that the medical staff didn't try to help, rather, they were always so distant. Once she regained some strength, they'd send her off, as if to remind her that, for all their care, she was still an outcast. Hospitals are depressing, she mused. Being around so much sadness only makes you feel more miserable. I'd rather be anywhere but here. Just then, the door to her room opened, and Naruko's ears perked up. Hey, Gigi. Did you come to see me? She called, her voice filled with hope. Hiruzen Sarutobi chuckled. Yes, Naruko-chan, I did come to see you, he said, emphasizing her name and correcting her once again. So, how are you feeling today, Naruko-chan? I'm feeling great, Gigi. Can't wait to get out of here and go to Ichiraku, Naruko exclaimed enthusiastically. The Hokage smiled gently. That's good to hear, my dear, but I'm afraid you'll have to stay here a bit longer until we're sure you're fully healed. What? No way. I'm already completely healed. Naruko shot her arms into the air in excitement, only to cringe in pain as soon as she did. Hiruzen quickly moved to her side, concerned. Are you okay, Naruko-chan? I'm fine, Gigi. It's nothing, she reassured him, offering a smile despite the discomfort. The Hokage sighed, well aware that Naruko was trying to act tough to avoid worrying him. Just be careful, Naruko-chan. You're still healing. Okay, old man. Naruko grinned playfully. The old man laughed softly, ruffling her blonde hair. You can boss me around when you become Hokage, Naruko-chan. Fine, but just you wait, Gigi. One day I will become Hokage, and I'll make you stop ruffling my hair. Believe it, she said with her trademark enthusiasm. Hiruzen's face softened into a fond smile. Even if you become Hokage, I don't think I'll stop ruffling your hair, my dear. But the moment passed, and his expression turned serious. It was time to discuss the important matter at hand. Naruko, I want you to meet the person who helped you yesterday. Naruko blinked, confused. I thought it was you who brought me here? Hiruzen nodded. I did bring you here, but the person who saved you is outside, waiting to speak with you. Would you like to meet them? Naruko's mind wandered. Who could it have been? Maybe it was the old man from the ramen stand? Or Ayame-chan? Wait, Gigi said it was a he, so it must be a boy. She was lost in thought when she suddenly noticed someone had entered the room. Naruko-chan. The Hokage's voice brought her attention back to the moment, and Naruko looked up to see a man standing beside her bed. He had blonde hair, though a shade darker than hers, tied back in a long ponytail. He wore blue trousers, a long-sleeved blue shirt under a Konoha Jonin vest, and a sleeveless red coat over it. A Konoha headband rested on his forehead. Hello, Naruko-san. I'm glad to see you're doing well, the man said with a warm smile. My name is Inoiki Yamanaka, and I'd like to speak with you if you're up for it. Hiruzen couldn't hide his amusement. He knew Naruko's response would be interesting. Go ahead, Naruko-chan, he encouraged. Nice to meet you, Yamanaka-san. And thank you for saving me, Naruko said, bowing slightly. Inoiki raised an eyebrow in surprise. Naruko-chan, did you just call me Yamanaka-san? Yes, why? Did I say it wrong? Naruko tilted her head in confusion. Hiruzen blinked in disbelief. You called him Yamanaka-san, but you call me Gigi, he exclaimed. Naruko grinned cheekily. Well, you are Gigi. That doesn't make any sense. Why would you call him by his name and me? Gigi? Hiruzen complained, but Inoiki simply raised an eyebrow. Don't be silly, Gigi. I'd never call him that, Naruko teased with a grin. Hiruzen sighed and gave up, while Inoiki rubbed his forehead in frustration. Inoiki cleared his throat and regained his composure. Naruko-san, I have a proposition for you. Would you like to become my disciple? Disciple? Naruko blinked, intrigued. Naruko-chan, what Inoiki means is that he wants to train you in the shinobi arts, the Hokage explained, interrupting the conversation. Naruko was genuinely surprised. Why would you want to train me? I'm not strong or fast, and many people in the village don't like me. If it's just out of pity, I'll have to turn down your offer, Yamanaka-san. Inoiki quickly responded. You're mistaken. It's true that I felt sorry for you when I first saw you, but that's not why I want to take you as my apprentice. I've witnessed how others treat you, and I can honestly say it deeply troubles me. No one deserves what you've been through. The villagers, myself included, have been ignorant, and I wish to help make things right. Additionally, I can't overlook the tremendous potential you have. Believe me, you're incredibly strong. Your ability to persevere through all that has happened proves that. And, you remind me of a dear friend of mine, Naruko-chan. Really? Who? Naruko asked, curious. Inoiki shook his head. If you become my disciple, I'll tell you about him someday. He was a remarkable person, and I'm sure you would have gotten along with him very well. Naruko stayed quiet, thinking about what she should do. She had always dreamed of becoming a ninja and earning the respect that came with the profession. Now, this man sitting beside her was offering the chance to train under him. She knew that this opportunity could be a stepping stone towards her dream, but doubt still lingered in her mind. She had just met him, and there was always the chance that the man was tricking her and could harm her. The Hokage noticed her hesitation and was surprised. He had expected Naruko to be thrilled by the offer of training from a skilled jonin. Naruko-chan, Inoiki-san is a dedicated shinobi of Konoha, one of the best in his field. If he trains you, you'll be one step closer to achieving your dream of becoming Hokage. And, I assure you, he will take good care of you if you decide to accept his help. Naruko's eyes brightened at the Hokage's words. She had always dreamed of becoming Hokage, but could this man truly help her achieve that dream? Hokage-sama speaks the truth, Inoiki continued. I want to train you, but I also want to help you grow. I'll provide you with food, a place to call home, and support in any way I can. And if you ever face danger, I'll protect you. I promise you that. Naruko was speechless. This man not only wanted to help her become stronger but was also offering her food, shelter, and protection. Almost like a father. Naruko thought to herself. After a moment of contemplation, Naruko made up her mind. She decided to trust the man called Inoiki Yamanaka. The two older men waited in suspense, relieved when Naruko finally turned to them and beamed. When do we start? Naruko asked with a bright grin, her excitement apparent. The Hokage laughed, and Inoiki let out a sigh of relief. We'll begin your training once you're released from the hospital, which should be tomorrow. What? But I feel fine already, I heal really fast, Inoiki-sensei, Naruko exclaimed. Inoiki-sensei. I like how that sounds, thought Inoiki, smiling inwardly. Naruko-chan, as your sensei, I know what's best for you. You should trust me when I say that you should stay for one more night so we can be sure you're completely healed. Naruko pouted but nodded in agreement. Fine, I'll stay in this boring hospital if you say so, sensei. Inoiki grinned at her. Don't worry, later today I'll bring my wife and daughter so they can meet you. Naruko nodded, but still looked a little down. I'll bring you ramen, Inoiki added with a wink. Instantly, Naruko's expression brightened, and her excitement returned. Yes. You're the best, sensei. Hiruzen couldn't help but smile at the budding bond between teacher and student. Inoiki-san, I think it's time we let young Naruko rest, the Hokage suggested. Understood, Hokage-sama, Inoiki said. Naruko-chan, I'll see you later today, okay? Inoiki stood up and walked out of the room, closely followed by the Hokage. All right, see you later, sensei, and Gigi. Naruko called out as the two men left. Once they were gone, Naruko settled back into her bed and stared up at the pure white ceiling. Maybe this time things will really change. With that thought in mind, she closed her eyes to rest, awaiting the return of her new sensei. Ino was feeling extremely restless. No, scratch that, she was beyond restless. As soon as her father had come home, he insisted on having a private conversation with her mother about some important matters, or at least that's what he said. He left her to manage the flower shop in the meantime. Normally, she would have been happy to help her mother, but today, hardly anyone stopped by to buy anything, leaving Ino with little to do other than browse through a magazine. Still, she couldn't shake her curiosity about what her parents were discussing. From time to time, she could hear her mother raising her voice, but what surprised Ino the most was hearing her father yell back, something he hardly ever did. When the yelling stopped, sobbing could soon be heard. Now Ino was genuinely worried. Did they have a huge argument? She wondered while trying to eavesdrop by pressing her ear to the living room door. Despite her best efforts, she couldn't catch any more details. They were probably whispering now, as her parents knew all too well how much of a gossip lover their daughter was. Shrugging, Ino returned to her post behind the counter of the flower shop. Not long after, both of her parents entered the shop and immediately noticed their daughter, who was watching them with a curious expression. Mayu, understanding how persistent her daughter could be when it came to gossip, sighed and addressed her directly. Ino-chan, your father has found himself a new apprentice. Would you like to go meet him? Ino blinked in surprise. Wow, that was easy. We were planning to tell you anyway, so it doesn't matter, Mayu shrugged. So, what do you think, Ino-heim? Are you interested in meeting Daddy's new disciple? Ino's father asked, his tone full of amusement. Ino thought for a moment before responding, Sure, Daddy, I'd like to. She smiled, though silently thinking to herself, anything is better than staying here today. Hearing his daughter's answer, Inoiki began closing up the shop with his wife's help, while Ino ran upstairs to change into something suitable. As Ino walked up the stairs, she couldn't help but wonder who had caught her father's attention. She knew her father well. He was one of the most respected and powerful ninja in the village, a member of the legendary Ino Shikacho trio, one of the most elite teams in the entire ninja world. I'm sure Daddy's new apprentice must be strong, intelligent, and hopefully charming. With that in mind, Ino focused on the important task of picking out an outfit, as she always dressed to impress. For Sarutobi Hiruzen, today had been one of the most fulfilling days he'd had in a long time, especially since the Kyuubi attack. Finally, the young person he had come to care for had someone to guide and train them. The Hokage was confident that, in the years to come, this individual would show the world just how powerful a shinobi she truly was. When the Fire Shadow returned to his office, feeling satisfied with the events of the day, he was greeted by a sight he never thought he'd witness. His desk was completely free of paperwork. For the rest of the afternoon, Sarutobi decided to indulge in his favorite pastime, reading. The Hokage chuckled to himself, wiping away a small trace of blood from his nose, while still holding tightly to the book that entertained him so much. Sarutobi Hiruzen was a connoisseur of poetry, writing, and drawing, but it was literature, especially a specific genre, that truly captivated him. To him, literature was a form of art that could express emotions more profoundly than any other medium. The scenes where people shared intimate moments were deeply moving to him, filling him with a sense of wonder. For Sarutobi, those words weren't just words, they were feelings brought to life. It was these profound emotions that kept him engrossed in his favorite books, the kind that delved deep into the complexities of human connections. So that's what you like, huh? He whispered, wiping away another trail of blood. Well, perhaps it wasn't just the deeper meaning he enjoyed. Suddenly, his quiet afternoon was interrupted by the sound of a knock on his door. Sarutobi quickly tucked the book beneath his desk and called out to whoever it was. Come in. When the door opened, he immediately regretted his words. Standing in front of him was none other than Danzo, wrapped in his bandages. Sarutobi's face remained neutral as he greeted his longtime former friend. What do you need, Danzo? I've heard some very interesting news, Sarutobi, Danzo said, his voice calm yet piercing. Is it true that Inoiki Yamanaka is taking the Kyuubi Jinchuriki as his new apprentice? The Hokage's brow furrowed. Care to explain how you came by this information? Danzo, ever perceptive, saw the suspicion in Hiruzen's eyes, but didn't flinch. Big news like this doesn't stay quiet for long, Sarutobi. After all, it's not every day that a clan head takes on an apprentice. Sarutobi's mind raced. Did Inoiki's daughter find out already? No, even if she did, it's too early for this rumor to spread. One of your rude Onbu was eavesdropping on my conversation with Inoiki yesterday, wasn't it? Sarutobi finally asked, suspicion creeping into his voice. Danzo maintained his calm expression. I don't know what you mean. Root has been disbanded, Sarutobi. The two men locked eyes, neither willing to back down. After a long pause, Sarutobi sighed in resignation. Why do you always have to complicate my job, Danzo? Danzo replied coldly, it's not my fault that you can't handle the pressure of being Hokage. That's nonsense, Danzo. You're just still bitter that Tobirama-sensei chose me as the third Hokage instead of you. The past is the past, Danzo replied, his tone cold and measured. I no longer care about what happened during the First Shinobi World War. Sarutobi gave him a pointed look. So you say. But I'm sure you still hold a grudge over your perceived weakness. Danzo flinched, though he didn't show it. Those words hit him harder than he wanted to admit, but he couldn't deny their truth. The First Great Shinobi War had left deep scars on everyone who fought in it. The battle changed the course of history, and many heroes had made ultimate sacrifices. During the war, both the first and second Hokages had perished, but Tobirama, before his death, had chosen Sarutobi as his successor. I regret nothing, Sarutobi, Danzo said, his voice soft but firm. At that time, I wasn't ready to be Hokage. Sarutobi eyed him curiously. Are you trying to say that you are ready now? I have been ready to lead the Leaf for years now. I respect you, Hiruzen, but you are no longer the same person who led the village through the 3 great shinobi wars. How dare you? I may be older, but I am still strong enough to protect my village. The insulted Sarutobi responded, his voice laced with pride. The subject of his aging strength was a sensitive one. He often found himself wondering if he could still protect the village if the need arose. I do not doubt your strength, Sarutobi, Danzo replied calmly. Everyone knows that even if you're no longer in your prime, you could still face any shinobi that challenges you. What I question is your judgment in some of your decisions. I won't lie, Danzo, I have made mistakes, Sarutobi admitted. But allowing Inoiki to train her instead of you is one of the best decisions I have made. I am aware of your training methods, and I will not let you turn Naruko into a tool without heart. A tamed beast is the best kind of beast, Danzo said solemnly, but inwardly, He began to lose patience, just as the Hokage did. "She is a young girl, not a beast," Sarutobi shouted. "She is a Jinchuriki," Danzo retorted sharply. "If we were able to suppress her emotions, we wouldn't need to worry about the Kyuubi being released. With such a powerful weapon, we would ensure the village's safety." "How can you even think about sacrificing a child's well-being, Danzo?" Sarutobi's voice rose with disappointment, his old friend's words stinging his heart. "Open your eyes, Sarutobi," Danzo snapped. "In war, it doesn't matter if you're an adult or a child. What matters is if you can wield a kunai to protect your home. We've seen it time and time again. In war, there are only tools and the people who use them. Shinobi are those tools, and they live to protect their people, no matter the cost. What does the life of a tool matter if it means securing the safety of your home? I understand what you're saying, but you won't change my mind. Trust me, Danzo, this is for the best," Sarutobi said firmly. Danzo sighed, thinking to himself, there's no convincing this stubborn old man. With a resigned shake of his head, Danzo turned toward the door. Before he could leave, he spoke one last time. "You've grown soft, Hiruzen. You and I are both living proof of the value of sacrifice. Toburama-sama died for us, so we could build the leaf into what it is today. One person's sacrifice saved hundreds of lives. Don't forget that." With those words, Danzo opened the door and stepped out, knowing what must be done. Tonight, he would set his course. "Danzo, my old friend," the Hokage called after him, his voice filled with sincerity, "please, don't do anything reckless. Just trust me this time." Danzo smirked. "Later. Old friend." And with that, he left, knowing the steps he must take. "You're that girl from yesterday," a furious blonde girl shouted, pointing at a girl resting in a hospital bed. The room went quiet as everyone turned to look at the upset girl. Her parents were confused by her outburst, but before either could speak, the girl continued. "I won't accept someone like you being trained by my father," Ino Yamanaka yelled, before storming off. Her mother hurried after her, looking concerned. "Ino-chan, wait," her mother called, chasing after her. Once the two blondes left, only two remained in the room. One of the men was clearly shocked, while the other stayed silent, his head lowered in thought. "You two know each other, Naruko?" the man asked, looking toward the girl in the bed. Naruko nodded, her head still lowered. She didn't want to face the man who had offered to teach her just a few hours earlier. She could already guess what would happen next. He would scold her, just like everyone else. "Inoiki-sensei," the man called gently, "look at me." But Naruko remained still, almost frozen with anxiety. "Inoiki-sensei, as your teacher, I command you to look at me," the man said, his tone firm yet caring. Naruko, surprised by the command, slowly lifted her head to meet his gaze. "Inoiki-sensei," Naruko said quietly, trying to explain. I just don't want to disappoint anyone." The teacher smiled warmly. "Naruko, listen well. Always hold your head high and look others in the eye when you speak. You are just as worthy as anyone else, and you have nothing to feel inferior about. Now, tell me what happened between you and my daughter, to make her so upset." Encouraged by his kind words, Naruko finally gave a small smile and began to explain the events from the previous day. Flashback. Uzumaki Naruko was currently enjoying her favorite food at her favorite spot. Normally, she wouldn't have gone out during the festival, but she miscalculated how much food she had at home. Despite trying to resist the hunger, she couldn't resist the temptation of going to Ichiraku and ordering a large, hot, and delicious bowl of ramen. For once, she wanted to enjoy her birthday. The Ichiraku ramen stand was Naruko's favorite place in the entire village. The owner, Tucci, and his daughter, Ayame, had always been kind to her, often offering her free servings. Though the stand was small, with only a few stools at the counter, it didn't matter to Naruko. It was the best place to eat ramen, at least in her opinion. The blonde girl was already on her third bowl when she heard a voice behind her. Excuse me?" Naruko didn't turn around, continuing to slurp her noodles. "Hey, kid, I'm talking to you." The voice spoke again, this time more insistently, causing Naruko to look up. To her surprise, the person speaking was a little girl about her age. As Naruko studied her, she couldn't help but notice how cute the girl was. The girl's platinum blonde hair reached her shoulders, and a small blue hair clip adorned her hair. Her emerald green eyes glimmered like precious gems, and Naruko found herself mesmerized by their beauty. The girl wore a light orange long-sleeved shirt, with a black strip around the neck and down the sides of her arms, featuring a boar insignia near the sleeve's ends. She also wore dark purple pants that stopped just above her ankles, accessorized with silver bracelets on her left arm and a silver necklace around her neck. "Are you talking to me?" Naruko asked, pointing to herself. The platinum blonde girl stared at her as if Naruko was being a bit silly. "Duh. Of course, I'm talking to you. You're the only kid here." Naruko chuckled sheepishly and rubbed the back of her head. "You're right. So, what do you need?" She wanted to sound cool, but her nerves got in the way. This was the first time a girl her age had ever talked to her, and she wanted to make a good impression. Fortunately, the girl didn't seem to notice Naruko's stuttering. "I'm looking for my daddy. I think he got lost. Have you seen him?" Naruko's sweat dropped. "Are you sure it wasn't you who got lost?" The green-eyed girl took a step back, frustrated. It doesn't matter who got lost. Have you seen him or not?" "How does he look?" Naruko asked, trying to be helpful. The girl placed her hand under her chin and thought for a moment. "Well, he's big and strong, and he has blonde hair. Oh. And he's a shinobi, one of the best in his field." Naruko thought for a moment, trying to remember if anyone matching that description had been in the stand. "Sorry, I haven't seen anyone with blonde hair today." The girl sighed. "Well, thanks for the..." Suddenly, a loud growl interrupted her, so loud that it might have scared even the bravest of animals. It came from her stomach. The entire ramen stand fell silent after the growl echoed. Neither Naruko nor the girl moved, as if time had stopped. Finally, Naruko burst out laughing. The poor girl's face turned crimson with embarrassment. "Don't laugh at me." Naruko, still holding her sides from laughing, tried to calm herself down. Sorry. Are you hungry?" "Wow, you're a genius." The girl responded sarcastically, crossing her arms. Okay, I get it, that was mean of me to laugh. How about you have one of my bowls?" Naruko offered kindly. "I'm not really a fan of ramen," the girl replied, still a little upset. "If you say that, then you haven't tried Ichiraku's ramen. It's food from the gods. Plus, it looks like you really need it, T-bio." The platinum blonde girl hesitated for a moment. "I am really hungry. And I don't have any money with me. I'm sure Daddy will be fine without me for a little while." "Alright, fine." With that, she walked over to the stool next to Naruko and sat down. Naruko quickly handed her one of the bowls that had been waiting for her. "My name's Naruko, by the way." The girl smiled and accepted the bowl. "Nice to meet you, Naruko. I'm Ino." She stared down at the ramen, filled to the brim with warm broth, noodles, and ingredients she couldn't quite recognize. Ino cautiously prodded the strange mix with her chopsticks, then gathered the courage to take a bite. Her eyes widened in surprise. Naruko wasn't exaggerating, "This is the best ramen I've ever had." She closed her eyes to savor the heavenly taste. When she opened them, she found herself face to face with Naruko. So? Isn't this ramen the best in the whole village?" Naruko asked with a big grin on her face. Ino almost lost her balance and fell from the stool due to the sudden closeness of Naruko. All right, I admit it. This is the best ramen I've ever had in my life." Naruko beamed with pride, and Tucci, the owner, looked on with a smile. "Well, thank you for the compliment, young lady." Both girls turned toward the man behind the counter. "Hey there, Oji-san, meet Ino. She's another ramen lover, just like me," Naruko said, introducing her new friend. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Ino-san. My name's Tucci. I'm the owner of this ramen bar," Tucci said with a warm smile. "Nice to meet you too, Tucci-san. Excuse me, but have you seen my father pass by?" Ino asked, a hopeful glint in her eyes. Naruko piped up. "Oh. That's right, Oji-san, Ino-chan here is lost." "I'm not lost, my daddy's the one who's lost," Ino protested. Tucci gave a gentle shake of his head. "I'm sorry, Ino-san, but I haven't seen Inoiki-san today." "I see." Ino's shoulders slumped with disappointment. Seeing her downcast, Naruko came up with an idea. "Hey, I have an idea, Ino-chan. I'm going to help you find your dad," Naruko exclaimed excitedly. "Really? Thank you, Naruko. I appreciate it," Ino said, her face brightening as she smiled. "No problem at all. We'll find him together. After we finish eating, of course." The two blondes spent the next half hour searching every corner of the village, looking for Ino's father. Despite the large crowd, they didn't give up, determined to keep going. The cold night didn't dampen their spirits. After some time, they returned to the starting point. It's useless, Naruko. With so many people, finding my dad is impossible, Ino said, sighing as she leaned against a building near Ichiraku. Come on, Ino-chan, don't give up. We'll find him, Dadabayo. Naruko encouraged with enthusiasm. Ino smiled at her. You're really kind, Naruko. Do you know that? Naruko quickly turned her head, trying to hide the blush that crept up her cheeks. Anyway, I think we should stay here and wait for your dad to come by. This street isn't too crowded. Ino giggled, noticing Naruko's blush. You're right, we'll have a clear view here, so we'll be able to spot him easily. The two children sat in comfortable silence as they listened to the festival music and watched the people pass by. Despite their best efforts, no one with the kind of blonde hair they were searching for passed by. Just then, Naruko noticed three figures stumbling down the street. They were swaying unsteadily, laughing and speaking in slurred voices. Naruko's worry grew when they pointed at her and Ino, and one of them shouted, "There's the demon child." The three figures started coming toward them, laughing loudly. Naruko immediately understood that they were drunk, and she feared they might try to hurt Ino. She couldn't let that happen. Without thinking, Naruko quickly pushed Ino into a nearby alley, then ran toward the men to intercept them. Why you? Demon, I'm going to get you. One of them shouted as the three men pursued Naruko. Ino, still shaken, was left alone for a moment. She had crashed into a garbage can when Naruko pushed her out of the way. Covered in trash, Ino groaned loudly. Why did she push me? She promised to help me find my dad, but now she's left me behind. Ino stood up shakily, tears starting to well in her eyes. She was cold, scared, and alone. Daddy, where are you? End of flashback. Is that what happened? The only Yamanaka in the room was now leaning against the wall next to the child's bed, thinking about what the young girl had shared with him. Yeah, I'm sorry for what I did, Naruko said, her voice sincere. Why are you sorry, Naruko-chan? If what you told me is true, I should be thanking you. You made the right decision by pushing Ino out of the way. Drunk people can be unpredictable. Naruko felt relieved that her sensei wasn't upset with her, but she still felt bad for Ino. She wanted to apologize to the blonde girl, but she wasn't sure if Ino would even want to talk to her. Inoiki could tell what was bothering Naruko, so he placed a hand on her head and spoke gently, "Don't worry, Naruko. I'll talk to Ino later and explain why you pushed her. By tomorrow, everything will be just fine." Naruko smiled at the jonin. "Thank you for everything, Inoiki-sensei." The blonde jonin smirked. "Just wait until our training starts. Then, we'll see how thankful you really are." Naruko paled at seeing her sensei's mischievous grin, but she was excited at the thought of learning from such a strong jonin. "Right, I'll give it my best." "Good, because I won't accept anything less. Now, I think I should go. You need rest, and I need to talk to Ino. Tomorrow, as soon as the hospital opens, I'll take you to your new home." "Will you really come back tomorrow?" Naruko asked uncertainly. "Of course, Naruko-chan. It's a promise." Naruko beamed at the jonin, her smile full of life, excitement, and joy. It was the kind of smile that could warm anyone's heart. Now, Naruko understood why the Hokage wanted to protect her smile. It was impossible not to smile back. Meanwhile, in a bar, three good friends were sitting together. They had been through many challenges, from dangerous missions to difficult times, always sticking together as a team. "I'm surprised, Inoiki," one of the men said, a goateed figure with two scars on his right cheek. "Being a sensei sounds like a lot of trouble." "For you, Shikaku, everything is troublesome," another man replied cheerfully. He had blue markings on his cheeks, long red hair, and a piece of white cloth tied around his forehead. "Hey, waiter. Bring me one more round of everything." "Don't tell me what to do, Choza. I've got enough to handle as it is," the third man, wearing a black and spiky ponytail, said before sipping his sake. Sure, Choza replied, unconvinced, before continuing to eat. Suddenly, Shikaku and Choza heard sobbing coming from between them. When they turned to look, they saw Inoiki with his head on the table, holding a saucer and a bottle of sake. "Are you crying, Inoiki?" The jonin in a mesh shirt, brown coat, and jonin vest asked. "I just don't know how to feel," Inoiki sobbed. "I'm happy to be a sensei, but it means I'll have less time to spend with you guys." The man dressed in a samurai-like outfit laughed loudly. "You sound just like you did the night before your wedding with Mayu." Shikaku smirked. "Don't forget, Choza, he also sounded like that the night he found out his wife was pregnant." "Oh, I remember that. Choza laughed. He spent the whole night talking about how happy he was and ended up throwing up on your coat, Shikaku. Yeah, I remember that. And because of you, Inoiki, Yoshino ended up scolding me, Shikaku added, glaring at his friend. Hey, that was your fault. You kept wearing that coat without washing it for 2 days. Inoiki argued back. Shikaku, usually the smartest of the group, was at a loss for words and could only mutter, troublesome. The three friends continued joking around, but their fun was interrupted when an Onbu appeared in a swirl of leaves. Yamanaka-san, Hokage-sama wishes to speak with you. Please follow me, the ninja in a white mask instructed. What's going on? What does he want at this hour? Inoiki slurred his words, still a bit inebriated. I'm not allowed to tell you, Yamanaka-san. And it's still evening, the Onbu replied. Fine, lead the way, smartass Onbu-san, Inoiki muttered, following the mysterious ninja. Dash. As they jumped across the sky, Inoiki began to feel uneasy. They weren't headed in the direction of the Hokage's tower, but instead to an unfamiliar area. When he asked the Onbu where they were going, the masked figure ignored him and continued jumping in silence. Inoiki's suspicion grew. Could this ninja be a member of Danzo's route? He thought. The Sandaime had warned him about Danzo, and if he wanted to train Naruko, he knew he would have to eventually confront Danzo. After several minutes, they arrived at a large clearing with a lake surrounded by trees. The setting sun cast a beautiful glow, and Inoiki recognized the place as the third training ground, where Team Hiruzen became full-fledged shinobi. At the center of the clearing stood a figure, Danzo Shimura, the so-called War Hawk. Inoiki, what is it you want to discuss with me? Inoiki asked, keeping his tone steady. Danzo turned around slowly, his eyes serious. Yamanaka-san, do you understand the meaning of a sacrifice? Inoiki was confused, but then his gaze fell upon the memorial stone. So this is what you meant, he thought, a chill running down his spine. Enough with the riddles, Danzo. If you have a problem with Naruko being my apprentice, face me and say it directly, Inoiki said firmly. Danzo's voice was cold. Very well. I want you to reconsider your decision to teach the girl, Uzumaki Naruko. There's nothing to reconsider. I will teach her, Inoiki replied confidently. Danzo's eyes narrowed. Why would you protect the girl who caused so much suffering in our village? The Kyuubi attack left many dead, and Naruko is the one responsible. Inoiki's mind started to waver, but he quickly shook off the doubt. I promised the Hokage I would protect Naruko's smile. I will keep that promise. Danzo didn't reply, but his expression grew cold. Inoiki had made up his mind. He wouldn't back down. He would protect Naruko and give her the guidance she needed. Dash. Will you really return tomorrow? Naruko asked again, her voice filled with uncertainty. Of course, Naruko-chan. It's a promise, Inoiki reassured her with a smile. Naruko flashed a bright smile at the Jounin, one full of life, excitement, and joy, a perfect example of the innocence and happiness that should define a child's smile. It became clear why the Sandaime wanted to protect that smile, as it was impossible not to smile in return. I promised Naruko that I would help her, protect her. To return tomorrow. Inoiki thought to himself. I won't believe the nonsense you're spreading. I said I would teach the girl, and that is final. An angry Yamanaka responded. As expected from a Yamanaka, they have strong mental defenses. But it's impressive how easily she resisted my mind control technique, thought Danzo, frowning. His initial plan had failed, but he still had many options up his sleeve. The girl needs to be trained by me to reach her full potential. A perfectly trained and emotionless Jinchuriki would be the perfect weapon, and other nations would think twice before challenging us. What does the life of one child matter if it means protecting an entire village? Danzo's voice was firm. Inoiki glared at the bandaged man but remained silent. As you know, this place is called the Memorial Stone. The names of the brave are etched here, the roots that support our village are formed from the sacrifices of those who gave their lives to protect it. By denying me the girl, you dishonor the memory of our heroes. I don't care about your speeches. I won't change my mind, said the blond man, turning to leave. But Danzo wouldn't let him go that easily. You have a wife and a daughter, don't you? Asked the calm, old man. Inoiki stopped in his tracks, fury blazing in his eyes. Don't even think about it, Danzo. The War Hawk remained unfazed. It would be a pity if something happened to them. Accidents can happen. Are you threatening my family, you vile man? Inoiki growled, clenching his teeth. Now, what could you mean by that? I'm just saying that there could be dangerous individuals watching your house, waiting for an order to act, Danzo said, a smirk creeping onto his face. Danzo, you old fool, when this is over, I'll make sure you regret this. Inoki thought, his mind racing. Do you understand now, Yamanaka? That girl is nothing but trouble. Are you willing to risk your family for her? Danzo's smirk widened. Forget about Naruko Uzumaki and live happily with your family. Inoki lowered his head. Danzo had trapped him. Damn it, this man could have his operatives stalking my family. If I go to the Hokage and report this, who knows what Danzo would do to Mayu and Ino? Inoki thought. He knew that going to the Hokage would be useless, Danzo had too many supporters, and his family would be at risk. Danzo's smirk grew at the sight of Inoki lost for words. Good, Yamanaka-san. I think you understand. Thump. A loud crash interrupted Danzo's words. He tried to turn his head to see what had happened but found himself paralyzed. What is going on? Danzo muttered, confused. Threatening a clan head, huh? You really messed up this time, old man, Inoki heard a familiar voice. Behind Danzo, Choza stood, using his enlarged arm to trap the root shinobi with the blank mask. Shikaku stood beside him, his hands forming the rat seal, his shadow stretching toward Danzo. Nara, I demand you release your technique. This is an act of aggression towards a Konoha elder, and if you don't, you will face serious consequences, Danzo said calmly. And why should he, you fossil? We heard you threatening Inoki's family. We're taking you straight to the Hokage. The large redhead shouted. Wait, guys. He's been having some of his ninja watch my family, Inoki shouted, alarmed. No, he's bluffing, Inoki, Shikaku replied calmly. Danzo snorted. How can you be so sure, Nara-san? Shikaku smirked. Choza and I have been listening to your conversation for a while. You said there were dangerous people watching Inoki's house, waiting for an order to attack. But that's not possible because Mayu and Ino aren't even at home, they went out to eat with our families. Danzo's face twisted in confusion. What? That doesn't prove anything. Well, the fact that they're not home right now proves you were lying, Shikaku said confidently. You didn't know where they were. Danzo growled under his breath, realizing his mistake. His careful plans were falling apart. You still have no proof I threatened Inoki, do you? If you take me to the Hokage, it'll be my word against yours, Danzo said, trying to regain control. And that's exactly what we want, old man, Choza interjected. The Hokage is already suspicious of you. He'll believe the words of 3 of his most loyal shinobi over an old man who's always scheming behind his back. I have the council on my side. Danzo's voice grew louder, desperation creeping in. Don't make me laugh. Koharu and Yutane won't save you now. They've been causing trouble for the Hokage too, Choza retorted. But before we go, let's see what you're hiding under all those bandages. Danzo's eyes widened, but before he could protest, his body started moving on its own. Shikaku and Choza pulled away the bandages, revealing Danzo's face to the soft orange light of the sunset. When they saw his right eye, both of the Jounin staggered, their bodies growing dizzy. That's the Sharingan. Shikaku thought, his knees giving way. He fell to the ground, losing control of his technique. The moment Danzo was free, he jumped back, putting distance between himself and the 3 Jounin. Shikaku. Inoki and Choza rushed to help their teammate. As they helped him up, Inoki caught sight of Danzo's red eye, the 3 black tomos glaring back at him. Danzo, why do you have a Sharingan? He demanded. Danzo's response was a powerful wind sphere, which he released toward them. The 3 men quickly scattered to avoid the attack. You've seen too much, Danzo growled. The moment you saw my Sharingan, you sealed your fate. Choza, Inoki, Ino Shikacho formation, now, Inoki shouted as they regrouped. Futon, Shinkigyoku. Danzo inhaled deeply, releasing spheres of wind that scattered across the battlefield. Bubun Baika no Jutsu. Choza enlarged his arm, striking the ground and lifting a large rock to block the wind. Inoki and Shikaku took cover behind it. The wind spheres collided with the rock, causing a cloud of dust to fill the air. Before the dust settled, Danzo saw a large ball coming toward him. Reacting quickly, he leapt into the air and used the wind to propel himself. But as he scanned the battlefield, he couldn't find his opponents. Just then, he heard a voice yell, Katen, Gokakyu no Jutsu. A huge fireball headed straight for him. In mid-air, evading the attack was difficult. He blew another gust of wind, propelling himself further away from the fireball. Danzo landed softly, but his relief was short-lived as tendrils of shadow shot toward him, aiming to pierce him. Reacting swiftly, he unwound his right arm and formed several hand signs. But it wasn't enough to stop the shadows from impaling him, as though his body was made of paper. Shikaku watched from his hiding spot. The plan had worked perfectly. Choza had forced Danzo into the air, where Inoiki was waiting with his fire jutsu. As expected, Danzo evaded the fireball, but he'd fallen right into Shikaku's trap. At least it was over, Shikaku thought, but just as the shadows held Danzo in place, his body vanished, as if he'd never been there. As expected of a Jonin commander, your strategy is excellent, Shikaku said. He spun around with a kunai in hand, but wasn't quick enough. Danzo swiftly caught him by the collar and knocked him backward with a powerful strike. The blow pushed Shikaku out from behind the bushes and almost sent him tumbling into Choza, who stood in the clearing. Are you all right, Shikaku? Yeah, I'm okay. That elder packs a surprising punch, Shikaku replied, wiping his mouth. Wait, you said his right hand? Choza asked with a frown. The sharp-minded Jonin quickly caught on. Danzo's right arm, which was usually covered, was now exposed. Choza, be cautious. I'm not sure what he did to that arm, but it's strange. Suddenly, Danzo emerged from the bushes. His right arm was now visible, and what the Jonin saw made them pause, 5 Sharingan eyes embedded into the arm, each one subtly shifting and twitching. Where did you get those Sharingan, Danzo? Here and there, Danzo replied nonchalantly. Long story. That's unnatural. Choza exclaimed and activated his technique. Nikudan Sensha, human bullet tank. Transforming into a rolling sphere, Choza barreled toward Danzo. Strangely, Danzo didn't dodge, instead, he ran directly at Choza. To everyone's surprise, Choza's rolling form passed right through him. Momentarily stunned, Choza slowed, but Danzo seized the opportunity. He threw wind-infused kunai toward Choza. At the last second, more kunai intercepted them in the air. You okay, Choza? Inoiki called from a nearby tree. Thanks, Inoiki. That was close. Choza replied, wiping sweat from his brow. Inoiki took a moment to focus and reached out mentally. Shikaku, can you hear me? Inoiki? That technique uses a lot of chakra. I know, but we need to understand how Danzo's arm works. Any theories? He rushed in before, then stepped back. I noticed one of the Sharingan closed. Maybe using the technique costs him something. Could that explain why Choza's move didn't land? Maybe it's not an illusion, but something else. It's likely. We should force him to keep using the technique until all the Sharingan close. But we need to know how he triggers it. Got it. I'll tell Choza. Let's move. Inoiki relayed the strategy and joined Shikaku, who was dodging blasts of wind. Wow, he's got energy, Shikaku thought, leaping to avoid another gust. One strike clipped him, sending him tumbling. Danzo charged, crafting a wind blade from his kunai. Just before Danzo reached him, a giant fist appeared and struck him away. Choza stood ready. Now, Inoiki, he shouted. Inoiki launched kunai, and Danzo smirked, until he saw the tags attached. Explosive tags. He realized, just as smoke and fire burst around him. The clearing shook, smoke clouded the area, and the team regrouped. Stay alert. This isn't over, Shikaku warned. Inoiki, can you sense him? Yes. He's still nearby. Expect an attack from the north. Everyone down. Inoiki called, just in time to avoid flying shuriken. The smoke cleared to reveal Danzo charging. Inoiki used mind-body disturbance technique, but Danzo resisted. He lunged, but Shikaku's shadow grabbed his arm, halting the attack. Choza seized the moment. Partial multi-size technique. With enlarged arms, Choza struck Danzo with a mighty double slam. The impact left only a mark on the ground where Danzo had stood. Choza sighed in relief, but Shikaku stayed cautious. That was too easy. Sure enough, Danzo reappeared behind Choza and struck again. Shikaku reacted swiftly. Shadow endgame technique. His shadow stretched and pulled Choza away just in time. Another explosive kunai flew toward Danzo, and the blast this time singed his clothes, revealing more of his strange arm. Shikaku studied him. He activates the technique using a hand seal combo, rabbit, boar, ram. After that, he's untouchable for a while. Then one eye closes, and he becomes vulnerable again. Inoiki nodded. I've felt his chakra dip every time one eye shuts. You're right. Danzo, though lightly burned, remained calm. Impressive. But knowing that won't stop me. Surrender, Danzo. Reinforcements will arrive soon, Shikaku urged. I won't. The village needs me strong, Danzo replied, preparing his next move. Shikaku noticed something odd. Why is there a face on your arm? Danzo smiled. To hold that many Sharingan, I had to make modifications. Those are from experiments with the first Hokage's cells. You're chasing power too blindly. Choza said, still trying to rise. Rest, Choza, Shikaku told him. We'll handle this. Danzo performed another jutsu. Wind release, vacuum great sphere. A large orb of air shot forward. Fire release, great fireball technique. Inoiki countered with a blazing fireball. The two techniques collided in a dramatic burst, with the fireball pushing through. Danzo dodged, but Shikaku's shadow caught him again. It's over. Shadow neck bind technique. A shadowy hand grabbed Danzo by the neck, immobilizing him. But Shikaku suddenly trembled. Strange marks appeared on his body, breaking the technique. Danzo nodded. It's a special seal. Ensures certain secrets remain hidden. You placed it. When you grabbed me, Shikaku realized, weakened. You're clever. Too bad you'll lose today. Danzo turned to Inoiki. All this over that girl? You trained that little Jinchuriki like she was important. Don't call her that, Inoiki replied. Naruko deserves respect. She's a hero. Danzo scoffed. Because her parent was the fourth Hokage? The team stared in shock. You spied on the Hokage? Inoiki demanded. That doesn't matter. The fourth knew what he was doing, he made a choice for the village. You're wrong, Inoiki said with fierce determination. He loved Naruko and wanted her treated as a symbol of hope. You and your politics twisted everything. Danzo's expression turned serious. You'll regret opposing me. The wind blew gently across the battlefield. Fallen leaves danced peacefully, but tension filled the clearing. Two warriors faced off, preparing for another exchange, one of honor, not destruction. They clashed in hand-to-hand combat. Inoiki struck first, Danzo deflected. Inoiki countered with a clever kick, catching Danzo off guard and knocking her back. Inoiki pressed forward. Danzo blocked but struggled under the steady rhythm of Inoiki's precise strikes. Eventually, Danzo gathered chakra in her enhanced arm and landed a solid punch, sending Inoiki back against a tree. Shikaku, still recovering, watched helplessly. Choza forced herself up. I can still stand. Let's go again, Danzo. I made sure to land a serious hit. With how much energy you've lost, you won't be able to lay a single finger on me, Danzo said with a smug tone. We'll see about that. Choza charged forward, his arm pulled back for a punch. As he got close, he threw his fist, only to meet Danzo's own. Their strikes collided, causing a shockwave as they pushed against each other, locked in a contest of strength. Neither could overpower the other. Eventually, Danzo stepped back and performed a hand sign. Wind release, great breakthrough. A powerful gust blasted from his mouth, strong enough to push Choza back despite his size. Suddenly, Danzo had to block a swift kick from Inoiki. Though he managed to defend, the impact staggered him, and Inoiki took advantage, following up with a flurry of punches and kicks. Danzo blocked many of the attacks, but some broke through his defense, wearing him down. He countered with a powerful punch to Inoiki's stomach, forcing her back. A cracking sound accompanied the hit, and Danzo smirked in satisfaction, but Inoiki didn't let go. She grabbed his arm tightly. As Danzo struggled to break free, he sensed movement behind him. He turned quickly. Is that Inoiki again? No. With my Sharingan, I can tell it's a shadow clone. Before he could fully react, the clone lunged and drove a kunai into one of the Sharingan embedded in his arm. Danzo let out a cry of pain, staggering back. The real Inoiki used the moment to deliver a spinning kick to Danzo's head. He tumbled to the ground, disoriented. As he regained his footing, he realized he was completely immobilized. The sand blonde ninja turned to see a familiar face. Shikaku. You broke free from the seal. Just like you said, every time one of his Sharingan fades, his chakra dips. I waited, then used a burst of my own chakra to break the seal. Shikaku stood steady, maintaining his jutsu. Danzo growled. No. I won't fail. To everyone's surprise, he began pushing against Shikaku's shadow imitation technique. Inoiki, what's going on? She called, concern in her voice. How is he moving through the technique? I'm not sure, Shikaku began, then his eyes widened. Wait. The sun. It's gone. It's already night? As darkness spread, Shikaku's jutsu weakened, and Danzo finally escaped its hold. Freed, Danzo leapt away from the group. He wiped his mouth, traced his fingers through the red smear, and swiftly formed hand signs. Summoning technique. A massive cloud of smoke billowed up. When it cleared, Danzo was seen standing on the head of a giant creature. The beast resembled a tapir but had tiger-striped legs, black fur with white markings around the eyes, and a long trunk. White wrappings were bound around its head, and 2 tusks protruded from its jaw. The tapir let out a mighty roar, shaking the trees around them. Inoiki looked to Shikaku. What's the plan? Shikaku looked at the towering beast, then back at his teammate, and turned to run. Shikaku, wait. Choza, come on. Inoiki called, already running after her commander. Even Choza, despite his condition, didn't hesitate to follow. They sprinted into the forest, but they couldn't hide. Danzo's Sharingan made tracking easy. All they could do was keep moving. Baku, use your suction, Danzo commanded. The summoned beast opened its mouth and began to inhale. The powerful suction tore trees from their roots and pulled rocks into the air like leaves in the wind. Don't let go. Choza shouted as he anchored himself, hands enlarged and gripping the ground. Shikaku, Inoiki, get ready. Seeing what their teammate intended, they prepared as Choza released his grip and let the suction pull him in. Super multi-size technique. Choza expanded rapidly, growing larger with every moment. Danzo recognized what was coming, but couldn't stop it in time. The ground shook as Choza crashed into the beast, and both giants toppled. Danzo barely managed to stay on top of his summon. Baku, get up. Keep fighting. The tapir rose as did Choza, slightly smaller but unfazed. With a determined yell, Choza charged again. We have to help her, Inoiki said to Shikaku. Choza won't last long alone. We'll distract Danzo, keep him from interfering. The 2 ninja dashed from branch to branch, moving swiftly toward the battle. As they approached, they saw Choza trying to pin the tapir in a headlock. Inoiki, now's our chance. Let's climb. They ran up Choza's leg using chakra, reaching his shoulder just as the tapir escaped and landed a paw swipe. Choza, are you all right? Shikaku called. Is that you? Yeah, listen, we need to get closer. We're going for Danzo. Be careful. He still has a few Sharingan left. Shikaku gave a soft laugh. You're always worrying about us. We've got this. He held up a scroll. These are signal flares. On my mark, unseal and raise them. Choza nodded, understanding immediately. Look out. Inoiki warned as the beast charged again. Hold on. Choza planted himself and absorbed the blow, then shoved back. Shikaku and Inoiki took the chance to leap onto the tapir's back. They engaged Danzo in close combat. Though weary, Danzo still managed to hold his ground, for a time. But their teamwork soon overwhelmed him. Danzo formed hand signs. Wind release, vacuum wave. A powerful wind attack spun around him. The 2 ninja evaded just in time and countered with a flurry of shuriken. Danzo used another gust to deflect them, but the wind obscured his vision, just long enough for Shikaku to strike from behind with 3 well-aimed shuriken. Now. Inoiki formed hand signs. Fire release, great fireball technique. Danzo, realizing the danger, shouted, Izanagi. The fireball hit its mark, but the Jonin weren't fooled by the illusion technique. They searched and soon spotted Danzo mid-air, preparing another wind attack. Vacuum serial waves. Blades of wind rained down, and the tapir roared. But Choza countered with a powerful strike, catching the beast's trunk and pulling it back into a headlock. Danzo, meanwhile, landed atop the tapir, still scanning for his opponents. Where are they? Below him, Shikaku and Inoiki waited. How long until his jutsu ends? 15 seconds. Choza should be ready. The 2 ninja hung upside down beneath the tapir's belly, silently counting. Then, they launched their attack. Danzo heard something and parried a kunai. There you are. He began forming hand signs again. Stop squirming. Choza shouted as he lifted the beast above his head. Let's finish this. He slammed it down with immense force. The impact triggered a tremor, and the creature vanished in a puff of smoke. As the dust settled, 3 figures were seen falling. Danzo prepared for a final strike, but lost his footing as the terrain shifted. Now, Choza, Shikaku shouted midair. He and Inoiki threw ninja wire attached to kunai at Choza's armor, halting their fall. Choza quickly unsealed the flares from the scroll, activated them, and raised his hand. Bright red light lit up the sky. Danzo glanced up, bewildered. They're signaling? But why? Someone must have already noticed all this. On the ground, Shikaku made the rat hand sign. Shadow imitation technique. Danzo scowled at the scene unfolding before him. It's no use, Shikaku. There's no Lee, he was interrupted mid-sentence, his eyes widening as the enormous shadow cast by the towering Akimichi surrounded him. Rabbit, boar, Ra, he attempted to complete the hand signs for a powerful escape technique, but Shikaku's shadow had already spread through Choza's and reached him. Raising one hand with a confident expression, Shikaku watched as Danzo's body mimicked his movement. He's restrained. Inoiki, he's all yours. Inoiki smiled calmly, focusing on their target. It's over, Danzo. Mind-body switch technique. Danzo's body slumped forward as Inoiki's technique took hold. For a brief moment, the battlefield fell silent. Then Choza broke the quiet with his deep, reassuring voice. Inoiki, are you with us? Relief filled Shikaku and Choza when Danzo, now controlled by Inoiki, answered with a familiar code. The boar, the deer, and the butterfly played shogi until they got hungry. Shikaku, your codes are getting more creative. Choza chuckled as he returned to his usual size. Shikaku simply shrugged and ended his technique. Not that bad. Let's move, time to report to the Hokage. Inoiki, still in Danzo's body, nodded alongside Choza. As Choza carefully lifted Inoiki's actual body, ready to depart, a voice called from the shadows. What's happening here? A figure stepped into view, an Anbu shinobi. Ah, Anbu-san. You're a little late, Choza said, addressing the black-cloaked figure. Shikaku sensed something was wrong. Before he could react, he felt pressure at his neck. This is not good. Root operatives, he muttered. Don't move, came a command from behind him. Shikaku glanced around. Choza was also restrained by 3 agents. The seasoned ninja, exhausted from battle, didn't resist. Inoiki Yamanaka, one of the masked shinobi said, release Danzo-sama immediately, or your team will be in serious danger. Inoiki, inside Danzo's form, took in the scene. His allies were surrounded. Fighting would be hopeless in their current state. Sighing with resignation, he released his technique and returned to his own body. Danzo-sama, are you all right? One of the root agents asked, rushing to his side. You arrived just in time, Danzo said, standing up with a hardened expression. We'll discuss your timing later. He approached Inoiki, now restrained. This victory is mine. You'll be labeled as traitors, but don't worry, I'll ensure Naruko Uzumaki receives proper guidance. She might make a fine kunoichi. With the right training, she'll serve the village well. Inoiki clenched his fists, frustration burning in his chest. He wanted nothing more than to stop Danzo, but his restraints held firm. Danzo turned to leave. Root, we're done here. Danzo. The voice froze him. It was unmistakable. So, the Hokage finally decided to make a personal appearance. Danzo turned and saw the third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, dressed in his formal combat attire, black and gray armor with his traditional helmet. What is the meaning of this? The Hokage demanded. Are root agents threatening our own shinobi? Danzo paused. He considered lying but realized it would be useless. Hiruzen had seen too much, and his Sharingan and arm were exposed. Just then, one of the root agents holding Shikaku collapsed, a kunai embedded in her mask. The others restraining Choza were already locked in battle with 4 newly arrived Anbu. Root, prepare for engagement. Danzo ordered, then quickly retreated while his agents clashed with the Anbu squad. Stop right there, Danzo. Sarutobi began to follow, but Shikaku stepped in his path. He quickly explained everything he knew about Danzo's eye technique and its temporary effect. He only has 2 left. That gives him about 60 seconds of illusionary safety. The Hokage nodded. Understood. Find a safe place to recover. We'll handle the rest. He disappeared in a blur, heading after Danzo. Meanwhile, Danzo leaned against a large wooden pillar at the third training ground. The moonlight shimmered across the nearby lake, casting a peaceful reflection across the surface. Straightening up, Danzo greeted the approaching Hokage. You sure took your time. Why, Danzo? Why put the village through this? Hiruzen asked calmly. I've done everything for the sake of the hidden leaf. Only I can unlock its full strength. Naruko Uzumaki was part of that future, but now I must forge my own path. You're exhausted. There's no point in fighting, Hiruzen said gently. Danzo replied with resolve, forming a hand seal. It's still worth trying. Wind release, vacuum great sphere. He exhaled a large blast of wind. Hiruzen responded without hesitation. Earth release, earth wall. A wall of stone rose up to absorb the impact. Danzo focused chakra into his eye, bracing for a counterattack. To his surprise, the ground below him shifted, a hand emerged and grabbed at his ankle. Earth release, headhunter technique. Danzo narrowly escaped by leaping back, only to see a shadow clone of Hiruzen rushing him. He blocked the incoming strike but was thrown backward by a spinning kick, landing near the water's edge. The original Hiruzen was already preparing his next move. Shuriken shadow clone technique. A single shuriken multiplied into a flurry. Danzo responded. Wind release, great breakthrough. A strong gust scattered the incoming projectiles. Hiruzen pressed forward. Fire release, fire dragon flame bullet. He expertly shaped the flames into the form of a dragon. Danzo had no choice but to rely on his illusionary technique again. The flames engulfed the lake, steam rising where they struck. As the mist cleared, Danzo was gone. Hiruzen remained focused, expecting the trick. He turned sharply as his shadow clone dispersed. Danzo had struck it with a wind-infused kunai. Seizing the moment, Danzo launched a desperate charge. Hiruzen met it calmly, countering each sluggish strike. Danzo's stamina was nearly gone, only his pride drove her onward. Breathing heavily, Danzo dropped to one knee, coughing. It's not over yet, Sarutobi. It is, the Hokage said softly. Time's run out. Danzo stood shakily. As long as I stand, I am a challenge to the village. So act like a Hokage, protect our people. Hiruzen hesitated, then slowly drew a kunai. If that's what you wish. Old friend. Danzo smiled one last time. With the last of her strength, she rushed forward, kunai in hand. Hiruzen did the same. The two elder shinobi met in a final, solemn clash. Danzo's kunai had long lost its wind chakra infusion. Now, powered only by the fading strength of a tired elder, it barely made a mark. In contrast, the kunai held by the Hokage found its mark with precision, delivering a firm blow that forced Danzo to fall to his knees. Danzo let out a labored breath. She had lost. From the moment the Hokage appeared, she had known the outcome. But strangely, there was no bitterness or anger in her heart. The worn elder leaned gently against her old friend's shoulder, her voice raspy. Hiruzen, never forget the weight of making tough choices for the village. You are the Hokage now. You must protect our home from anything that could threaten it. Even if it comes from someone close. You were never my enemy, the Hokage responded softly. You simply believed in a different path. Even if your choices were misguided, your heart was loyal to the village. That will not be forgotten. Danzo gave a tired chuckle. You're still too kind, Hiruzen. But that's what makes you strong. I couldn't be Hokage, but I trust you'll continue doing what's right. Take care of our village. Guardian of the Leaf. And with that, Danzo gently closed her eyes, finally at peace. Dash. You look kind of funny all wrapped up like that, Inoiki-sensei. A cheerful voice called out. A smiling blonde girl stood by the hospital bed where a rather exasperated Inoiki lay recovering. How in the world did you get so hurt in a bar fight? Naruko teased playfully. Even the Hokage chuckled before silencing himself under Inoiki's firm glare. After the confrontation with Danzo, the Hokage had returned to assist the Anbu squad that had engaged with Danzo's secret forces. Thankfully, the situation had resolved safely. The Anbu brought Shikaku, Inoiki, and Chozo to the hospital for recovery. To avoid public concern, the Hokage reported that Danzo had encountered an unknown rogue shinobi and passed while defending the village. He also claimed that the Ino Shikacho trio had been injured in a humorous, if unfortunate, bar scuffle, a story amusing enough that no one questioned it, especially since such things had happened before. Although the three weren't thrilled with the excuse, the Hokage's authority after the incident was unquestionable. His presence seemed to carry a weight reminiscent of his younger days as the renowned shinobi of legend. As soon as Naruko heard about her teacher being hospitalized, she leapt from her bed and darted through the hallways in search of him, despite not knowing the room number. Fortunately, she ran into the Hokage and joined him in the search. Together, they found Inoiki's room quickly. Inside, Naruko's lively curiosity lit up the room. She asked endless questions, and her sincerity won the favor of even the usually reserved Shikaku and the cheerful Choza. Shikaku even played a casual game of shogi with her. Inoiki looked over to see his student listening intently to one of Choza's many light-hearted stories about the team's past missions. It was worth it, he thought. "Daddy!" A familiar voice shouted as a young girl threw her arms around him. Inoiki smiled warmly at his daughter. Hello, Inoheim. I missed you too. Maybe just a gentler hug next time, my ribs are still sore, he said with a soft wince. Ino quickly stepped back, murmuring a bashful apology. Just then, Inoiki's partner walked in and placed a gentle kiss on his cheek. "Hi sweetheart. How are you feeling?" she asked with a tender smile. While her parents exchanged kind words, Ino approached the small, whiskered girl sitting on the edge of Choza's bed. Naruko swallowed nervously. She expected Ino to be upset with her. But to her surprise, Ino simply smiled. "Naruko-chan, I'm really sorry for how I acted yesterday. Daddy told me you were just trying to help me when I was in trouble. And you even got hurt because of it," Ino said sincerely. Naruko blinked, then gave a small smile while scratching her head. "Don't worry about it, Ino-chan. I should have explained what was going on instead of surprising you like that. It's okay. Hey, do you want to get some ramen later? We can play afterward, too. I still owe you for that bowl you treated me to." Naruko's face lit up with a grin. "Absolutely. Let's go." "Then let's not waste any time," Ino exclaimed, grabbing her hand and pulling her out the door. "Ino, wait." "Don't worry, Inoiki-san," the Hokage reassured with a kind smile. "I'll assign one of my most trusted Onbu to watch over them." Shikaku, half awake from a nap, smirked. "Looks like you've got a new student and maybe a future family member." Choza chuckled heartily. "She's already going on her first lunch date. They really do grow up so fast." Inoiki rolled his eyes with a scoff. "Please. Naruko and Ino? That's not happening. Right?" He paused, looking around. Everyone in the room, including the nurse who had just walked in, was giving him the exact same look. "Right?" No one responded. Dear YouTube family. That's all for today. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more. Thank you for your continued support. Warm regards. 6 Path Weeb.